It's how to earn $100,000 going to graduate school. Okay? Anybody like to have an extra $100,000? All right, good. I'm talking to the right audience. That's fantastic. So I'm going to tell you about $100,000 actually is secondary to the reason that you're all here this summer is because you are interested about research. You're interested in getting a research experience, seeing what it's like, either doing computational work, theoretical work, lab work. You want to get involved. So I'm going to talk to that also, but I'll also tell you why you might want to consider $100,000. Now, who am I? I am a former graduate advisor for Materials Science and Engineering, graduate program here at UCI. I was the former chair of the graduate committee for many years for Materials Science and Engineering and Chemical Engineering. So I've seen thousands of applications for graduate school. So I'm going to give you the inside scoop, right? I'll give you the truth and you can ask questions too. So I'll answer everything honestly, all right? Things that other people may or may not tell you. I am the former Associate Dean of Graduate Studies here at UC Irvine, which means I saw applications from all different areas around here. Now, there are a number of reasons to go to grad school. And in the end, by the way, you may decide none of these fit. You may decide you really like working with people and you want to be in sales, and you can see that with a technical background that you could be one of the top people for a line of equipment, and you can see yourself being vice president of manufacturing. You can see yourself doing all kinds of other things. And I just want to tell you that there's many, many great careers that do not require you to get what I'm going to be trying to sell you mostly is a PhD, but you don't even need necessarily a master's level degree. There are also other kinds of degrees you might want to consider that are graduate degrees. So I am a professor. I love what I do. I love doing research. I love thinking about cutting edge technology. I work in fuel cells and new types of materials development. And it's exciting. And the reason I'm here instead of at IBM, which I could do the same thing at IBM, is that I like teaching also. So I'm here at the university. But I could be at a number of great companies out there, DuPont, Dow Chemical, lots of places. But I am obviously very excited about research, and I had a great time as a PhD student, and that's obviously the excitement I'm going to give you. But to be honest, there are great pathways to doing a lot of other things. So let's not think we have to all do that. Oh, one thing I wanted to do, but now that I think everybody's here, is ask who's who. I understand there are some students from Mount SAC. We have the Mount SAC students. Oh, excellent. I had a fantastic student from Mount SAC come and work with me 2 summers ago. Okay, and how many are in the Surf It program? Great. And do we have anybody else who's here who's not in one of those 2 programs? Anyone else? Not in one or the other? Everybody else with one of those 2 groups. Okay, well, welcome. All right, why go to grad school? Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, number one, if you really like teaching or think you someday want to be a professor, and this is particularly true if you want to teach at a 4-year college. For a 2-year college, actually, the community colleges, you can do very well with a master's program. But even the community colleges now are looking to hire people who've had teaching experience. And most of the graduate students who get the teaching experience are those who are PhD students. So even now, the community college, because it's actually a great place to work, are hiring more people with PhDs, even the sciences and engineering. So if you want to teach, it's kind of like you have to have it. It's your credential, that you need to have. So that's one reason you might. Although most of you probably haven't done much teaching. I didn't when I was an undergrad. So that's not why I wanted to go on. Okay. If you like research, and we're hoping this summer and your other experiences will actually get you all excited about doing research and think this is really fun. If you want to do it at any place, if it at a university, in industry, at a government lab, you want to go up to Sandia National Labs in Albuquerque, New Mexico, or up to Los Alamos near Santa Fe, some amazing government labs that you can work in and do great research, you still need a PhD. You need to be trained in how to think and do advanced research on your own. Okay. Now, another kind of management, a degree you might want to get, a graduate degree, might be a master's degree, which often you get along the way to a PhD, by the way, or an MBA, a Master's of Business Administration. Those graduate degrees are particularly useful if you want to go up the management train. And I know companies, one of my graduate students at Minnesota who did her master's, she worked at Medtronics, and she came and she said, I need to get my master's because I want to be a group leader. And all the group leaders have master's degrees. So, if I don't have it, I'm just an engineer, and I can be part of a group. I work on great teams, but I want to actually lead. And whether or not you go for the technical one, which is the Master's of Science, which gives you more of the background in your particular scientific or engineering field, or if you go for the MBA, which gives you more of the management, or if you combine it together, as we now have done here at UCI, we have a master's that's both engineering and the business school have combined together to get one that has a little aspects of both. It doesn't really matter. It's basically really important that you're able to have some advanced degrees and you can actually show that you can do things that are pretty sophisticated. Okay, and here's the, now this is actually after your PhD. Many of my graduate students have started off earning, or at least within a few years of graduating, they've earned more than $100,000 a year. And more than I, actually. So it is a very lucrative, depending on where you work. If you go work at the university as a faculty member, you may not be earning quite as much. But the companies are very competitive in terms of where you are. And you may not start off that way right away, but the salaries actually pretty quickly escalate also. I think the starting salaries that I've seen recently are somewhere between $80,000 to $90,000 a year from my field, material science and engineering and chemical engineering, for a PhD in industry. Okay? So you might think, okay, that's worth it. I could save a little bit and continue to go to school and pay for some more, take out some more loans. You don't have to do that. I'm going to explain why. Well, before I tell you why, I'll tell you where I came from. I was actually an undergrad at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. A wonderful place to be an undergrad. I loved it. And I loved getting out of there. I was there for 6 years. Anybody who goes to undergrad school for more than 4 years, don't feel bad. I was there 6. Okay, it took me a while. I was doing a couple different majors. But obviously I was okay. I had my BA in classics. I got a BS in engineering. Went to grad school because, like you, I had an opportunity to do research. And I got really excited. I love the faculty. I love working with the grad students. I love the project. I had 2 different projects as an undergrad. One first that was about a year-long project and a summer that I worked on. And I had no good results, by the way. It was trying to use equipment in physics, and I wasn't particularly good at it because it was more like you had to figure out how to put it all together. And it was a little bit over my head as a new undergrad to try to work on that. And then later I got into a second project that was using transmission electron microscopy, and I really loved it. And that just sort of clicked. Using the equipment, getting the results, interpreting the images, I just loved it. And so that, to me, I said, I want to do research. This is so much fun. But even the first experience where my poor graduate mentor and my poor faculty member who worked with me for an entire summer and got absolutely nothing out of it, I got something out of it. And that is, I got an excitement about how you do research, that you try all these things, that you read these articles, you read things that you don't quite even understand, and you try to put it into context. And that, to me, seemed really interesting. And so much more interesting than just kind of going in and doing a job where you kind of know day after day how it's going to turn out. After I did my PhD and graduated from Stanford, I did a postdoc, which is just some more advanced training in my field, doing research in Germany for 2 years. And my first faculty position was at the University of Minnesota. And then I had personal reasons I wanted to come to California, not just the weather. And I came out here, I was recruited to UC Irvine a long time ago, actually, which I'm very happy. This place has been amazing how it's changed and grown. It's a great, great choice. So first I want to tell you where some of my students have gone. And they have gone off to do all kinds of things. Mike Martin, who graduated with a PhD from here, he's now Vice President of Fuel Cell Technology at a company in Dayton, Ohio. Adele Sharif is an associate professor of mechanical engineering at CSU LA. Maria Gust is product development manager at Western Digital. Joe Bailey is at 3M in Minneapolis. I actually don't know exactly what he's working on because all the scientists at 3M, they never tell you what they're working on. Andrew Shapiro is a manager of research up at JPL in Pasadena. And he's actually working on some of the thermal conductivity problems they have for some of the missions to Mars, which I think is really, really cool.
And if I can interject, Andrew was one of our surfeit students back when he was an undergrad.
He was not an undergrad here, though.
No, I think it's a different Andrew you're thinking of.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Different Andrew.
There was an Andrew who worked on fuel cells who was an undergrad.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember who you. I
Yes.
can't think of his
Yeah,
last name.
okay.
Yes, yeah. But Andrew, he came as a PhD. The other reason I remember is I think he was at UCLA as an undergrad. And Garo Dadarian is in Micron, Idaho, working on semiconductor materials. And these are all just a small number of students, but you can see they're all over the country. They're all doing really different and interesting things. And believe me, they're all being extremely well paid. So let's first talk about the Masters of Science, because often when you go on to get your PhD, along the way, you'll get a Masters of Science. It's just sort of the requirements sort of fall in. This presentation will be online if you want to check back and look for anything. So it's got some links here. This is a link to the UCI Catalog. And you can look up for the UCI Catalog. It's online. It's free. And it's similar to what you'll find for most universities. Okay, so I'm not trying to sell you to come right here to UCI, although what a fantastic place. There are a lot of other great choices. And you can find the catalogs usually online for most universities. The masters are pretty similar at most places. There's usually often two kinds of options. One is that you take a lot of coursework, 12 courses. You can usually finish it in about a year, and then you do either a big comprehensive exam or you do a project that shows that you've mastered and integrated the material. Then there's a second option that has usually a little bit less coursework, where you actually do a small research project, and that's called a master's thesis. And that usually takes a little bit longer, so it might take up to 2 years to complete. Now, the Masters of Science, I will let you know, the Masters, because it can only take 1 to 2 years, it will give you a benefit also for the kinds of jobs. We talk about being a manager of a group eventually and things like that. It will also give you an edge for your salary. So we feel, and most universities feel, that if you come in as a master's student and you're going to be here for 1 or 2 years, you're going to go out and earn a lot of money, we're not going to pay you to do that because you're going to get the benefits pretty soon out of getting your master's. So you can expect, if you apply to master's programs in different places, that you're probably going to be paying for that completely yourself. Now the PhD program, the Doctorate of Philosophy, that's the name, okay, even though it's science and engineering, is usually a 5-year program, maybe a little longer in physics or some of the other disciplines. Maybe it might be 6 years. Experimental physics, I don't know, 7 years. But usually 5 years is about the normative time to degree. And because you're in the program for so long, we actually feel we need to support you. We don't think it's fair. You've already done your undergraduate studies. You've already paid for that. You've already taken out loans or had work study and all that. So we think we should help you out for the PhD program. Now, as I told you, along the way, in the PhD, you usually get the same coursework. The difference here is that for the PhD, you need to write what we call a dissertation. So it's bigger and longer than a thesis. And you have to show you have some independent project that is a unique and new contribution to the field, either science or engineering, okay? And that is, once you have that completed and finished, then you defend it and then you graduate, okay? So that, but it's got to be something new. You can't just say, well, I'm testing a bunch of samples out and they all broke and that process wasn't very good. People say, that's nice. You know, maybe that's a master's thesis because you did a bunch of results and you put it up, but it's not new knowledge that's really advancing the field. So it's got a lot higher bar, which is why it takes you so long to do. The first year, as I said, you take courses usually in the PhD program. Then there are exams, different kinds of exams. The qualifying exam is usually you defend your idea. You have an idea of what you want to do because you did some preliminary research as a grad student in the first 2 years or so. And then you put together your idea and say, well, here's what I want to do for my PhD. So I have a student who's looking at ceramics, making ceramics. And his interest is he's seen that when you have water vapor at high temperatures, like in turbine engines and all, it can actually degrade and change the material dramatically. And that's not well studied. So he's going to be giving his qualifying exam with a new idea. He's going to say, I want to study this phenomena, and at the end of my PhD, I will give you some answers as to why it happens and how we can prevent this damage from water vapor interacting with ceramic coatings and ceramic materials at high temperatures. So the committee will listen to his idea, and they'll tell him, yeah, that's a good PhD, or they'll say, no, you really need to do something a little different. That doesn't sound very good. Okay, so that's the qualifying exam. And at the very end, of course, you give your final defense. Okay, if you like research, though, it's a lot of fun. Because after the first year of taking classes, it's completely different than undergraduate life. And I was a member in undergrad for 6 years. I was really tired of taking classes, really tired, okay? So I did not want to continue at all. I wanted to get out of there, do something different, and I love being in grad school because after the first year of taking classes and exams, I was really able to just 100% do research, which is really fun, and it's very different than any other option you have. So how do you get into grad school? The GRE is the graduate record exam. It's like the SAT equivalent for graduate school. Okay, most places will require it, either for a master's or for a PhD. Just like the SAT, it's got a part of math section, it's got a verbal section, it's got some other section on it, which I've forgotten what it is. And they change it from year to year. My only advice is, take a prep course or get a book or practice online. They have free exams on the GRE website because you want to make sure you don't have a very low score, especially in the quantitative, the math section. If you come out with a really low score in the math section and you're applying to science and engineering, we're going to say, wow, you got good grades, but it doesn't look like you retained much. You can't even do simple math. And actually the math is not much more than introductory calculus. So if you can do that, you can do pretty well, but you have to prepare for it. So you need to think about this, and when are you going to take it? The year, you have to take it like at the summer before you're going to apply for grad school. You want to think about where do you want to go, right? You're a pretty elite group. Those of you from Mount SAC, I know you haven't yet transitioned or you're in the process of going to four-year school. Those of you who are at UCI, some of you are ready to be seniors next year. But it's a good time to start looking around, thinking, where do you want to go? If you get excited about a particular area, say fuel cells, then you might say, well, where can I go to work on fuel cells? Well, the answer is actually probably every major university. So when I went to my professors and I said, I want to work in ceramic materials and transmission electron microscopy. I love looking at images of materials and interpreting what's happening with them and what kind of defects are there and why they behave the way they behave. And they said, that's great, Martha. They said, there's 50 schools across the U.S. that you could go to, graduate schools. Narrow it down. And remember, I'm in Cleveland. I said, how about California? So Berkeley and Stanford at the time were the number ones. Actually, right now, there are other schools that I would have picked in California. But at the time, many, many years ago, those were the two universities that had the combination of top people in ceramics and electron microscopy. So I narrowed it down, and those were some of the schools I applied to. I also applied to England because I thought, well, maybe I want to go to England and see what I could do. But one of the things I would really recommend is you go on the website and you look for each place you think you might be interested in. You look at the faculty and you see what kinds of things are they interested in. And you want to make sure that wherever you go, there's hopefully more than one person that you could work with. Just in case things don't work out or in case you want to have a choice of who you work with. So you want to make sure that it's a big enough group that can do the kinds of research you're interested in, maybe a couple faculty. Online, there's always the application, and the applications are almost identical for every place, but they're all different. So you have to fill them all out differently. But every single one is going to ask you for a statement of purpose or statement of interest where you really want to emphasize your research. We don't really care that much if you were the president of your fraternity, or if you did a fundraiser for a cancer patient and you earned $1 million for that patient. That's kind of nice. But we're more concerned about two things. What kind of experience you have that will make you good for teaching and mentoring undergrads. So if you've worked in groups with other students and you've helped out in either tutoring or interacting with students or conducting outreach or anything like that, going to the high schools or elementary schools, that's good. Anything that you can tell us about that. But we particularly want to know, what did you do in your research? What kind of experience did you have? So those of you from Mount Sac, you can say, I went spent a summer at UCI, I did this and this and this, and I learned this, and I became interested in getting a PhD. And then you can say, and then when I went to, I'll just pick some place, Cal Poly Pomona, I conducted research with Professor Winnie Dong there, and I did this other project, and I now know that what I'm really interested in is why, and that's why I picked your university, because it's great in fuel cells, and that's what I've been working on. Okay? So when you talk about, of course, a little more detail about what you did and how your research experiences have formed you, we can then see, will you be good as a graduate student? Because remember, graduate school is 1 year of coursework, or for the PhD, and 4 years of research. So we really want to make sure you really know what research is and you have some idea. You don't have to be real specific. If you think you're interested in a lot of things, tell us that. If you're into something very focused, tell us that. That's what we want to know about. The deadlines are usually in the fall, so they're usually in December. Some of them are in January. They keep moving a little earlier, though. Everyone will require not only the statement, personal statement, they're going to require 3 letters of recommendation. And it's never too soon to start thinking about who are those 3 people. Whoever you're doing research with this summer, you hope that will turn into one of those letters, okay? And then you hope you get at least maybe one other research experience or somebody else who's had you in a class where you've done a project or something that they also can write something very strong about you. And actually it's hard to have 3 letters of people that know you really, really well. They should be professors. They should be faculty, because that's what we look at. Your crew coach can tell me you're a great person and you show up on time, you've got great motivation, but I'm not hiring you to be a crew team leader, right? I'm hiring you to be a researcher, to get a PhD in a very rigorous, tough program. So I need somebody who's had a PhD. If you do research in the summer in industry and you work with somebody who has a PhD, that can also count. But we want somebody who really knows, what does it take to get a PhD? Does this student have the potential to do that? And as I will tell you later, this is probably, after your own statement, this is probably the most important. And everybody will ask for your transcripts. Okay. So transcripts, just to point out, I'll tell you about GPAs in a minute, but don't worry if you kind of had a rough time as a freshman. A lot of people did. Or if you were really ill and you were out with mono, you had to be hospitalized as your sophomore year, make sure you mention that in your statement. Make sure you let people know that there's some special circumstance. But whatever you do, make sure your last 2 years, your junior and senior years, show that you're going in a good trajectory. Okay? That's what we like. If we see people in their junior and senior year are kind of going downhill in their grades, we get very worried because we know that those are the courses you're going to need to do well in graduate school. Okay, this is sort of going, I already mentioned this. Pick a grad school. The #1 person you want to talk to are your professors. They know. Hey, who didn't turn off their phone? Answer this. No. Okay. Turn it off. Yes. Okay. There we go. The different faculty you work with, particularly if you get some kind of research that you're really excited about, they can help you figure out what schools are good. Now, I'll give you a caveat. Most of us know the schools we went to the best, so we always like to send you to our schools or different schools that are related. But actually, many of the faculty know a whole breadth of different schools. So the more people you talk to, the better. They also can kind of figure out where you fit. Maybe you're kind of an okay plus student, but not a real superstar. So maybe they're not going to say, go to Harvard or someplace like that. Maybe they'll say, the best in your area that I think you'd be really good at would be going to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, because it's right next to Oak Ridge National Labs, and they have fantastic equipment and all that you can work on. So they can tell you about that, especially if you know what areas you're interested in, because that's what you want to do. Now this is a little trickier. Let's say you have lots of research you like. In the very end, and this will sort of come probably after you applied, you want to make sure that if you are going to pick an advisor before, some programs have you pick who you want to work with before you actually start. Other programs have you do research rotations with a couple faculty. But whatever it is, you want to make sure that your ultimate PhD research advisor is somebody you like. So never commit, my advice is never commit to a PhD program without actually going to visit and meeting the people and meeting their students. And make sure that their style and their personality is something you like. They may look great on paper. They may be the most wonderful researcher in the world. But if they're kind of mean and nasty and all that, you may not want to work for them. Now, that's probably not what you're going to see. It's probably more style. You may be the kind of person that likes to have somebody that really keeps you on track. Otherwise, you'll be too unfocused. You're going to go to Santa Barbara, you'll be at the beach all the time unless somebody gives you every day, wants to sit on you. You may be the opposite. You may like having somebody give you a project and say, here's something. They might say, here, let's close our laptop. Okay. So we might say, let's give you a project, right? And you could take it off and do it on your own. And you love that. You like going to the library, finding out stuff, coming back, and then maybe after a month, you'll come and see me, right? And you'll say, I got some ideas here, and I've got something new I wanted to try. And you love that complete independence where you do what you want, and the advisor says, yeah, whatever, come see me whenever. And so it's all very personal. That's not a better style than the other. It's just different. And that's one thing I think it's really important in grad school, is you pick up an advisor who has a personality like yours, okay? Laptops down, we don't really, I know you're taking notes on me, but that's okay. You'll have this afterwards. If you know where you want to be, then location is important. And most people I know, students in California, like to be in California. But I've also met students who said, I've been in California for a long time. Get me out of here. I want to go some different part of the country. I want to see what it's like to live in Boston, or see what it's like to live in Montreal, someplace with real different weather, okay? So think about that, though, realistically. Will you be happy? I had a sad case of a fantastic student who went to the University of Connecticut because it gave him the best financial offer. He was horribly homesick. He was from a really close family. He really loved doing activities. Every week it would be somebody's birthday or somebody's big thing. And he ended up, and had terrible allergies on top of it, and he ended up coming back to California and sort of dropping out of grad school. He's now going to grad school somewhere else in California. But it probably would have been better for him to say, well, is the money the most important thing, or is it how important are some other factors to me? Okay, your GPA will tell how you pick a grad school. GPA, so if you want to take a note on this, you may open your computers up and take a note on this, but every University of California school will require you to have at least a 3.0 for any master's or above graduate programs. Okay, that's the bare minimum. Minimum. Most, that's not enough. The CSU system, the California State University system, also offers masters, and their minimum GPA is closer to 2.7, okay? So sometimes our students who haven't quite, gotten to the level where they can apply to a UC system will look at some of the really good research-intensive Cal State programs and say, I want to go there and do a master's first and then decide what I want to do afterwards. So the GPA depends a lot on where you apply. Now, for the graduate programs, as I said, in UC, University of California, all of our campuses, a 3.0 is a minimum, but that's really not enough. You need a higher GPA to get into most of the PhD programs. If you have above a 3.5, you're doing pretty well. You're going to be able to sort of look pretty good. If you have above a 3.7 or a 3.8, now you can really look competitive for some of the absolute top schools. And one of the things, as I said, talking to your faculty, you'll find that the top schools are not the same top schools as when you were an undergrad. When you were an undergrad, you were just kind of undergrad, right? Coming in as an undergrad to a big university. When you apply to graduate school, you don't apply to UCLA. You apply to the Material Science and Engineering department at UCLA. And that department has different standards than, let's say, the Biomedical Engineering department at UCLA. Not even sure there is one, but if there was one. They have different standards. And so even in the same university, they can have very different standards in where they accept. And that's why when you talk to your faculty members, they can tell you, oh, I know, this place is really hard to get into. Santa Barbara is a great example. Material Science and Engineering, my field there, is #1 in the country. But East Asian language and literature is not so great there. Okay? So depending on what field you're in, where you are, you can go in different places. So I just recommend that you sort of keep this in mind, that everything's a little competitive. You can always apply anywhere, but never apply to a school that people who are writing you letters don't agree. If they say, oh, Martha, I don't know, Harvard, I'm not sure I'd recommend that, don't bother applying and asking that person to write you a letter. Because they will write a letter. I would write a letter. If I said I'd write a letter and say, well, she's a really good student, and I think she'd be great. She's done some great research. I don't think her intellectual prowess is the same as most of your students at Harvard, and you simply won't get in, okay? Because we know how competitive certain programs are, and we know usually approximately where you can go. Now, having said that, there's a lot of sort of soft stuff in between, okay? So you can pick schools that maybe are a little out of your reach, just like you did probably for undergrad school. Pick these that are a little hard to get into, safety schools you know you'll get into, and then, a lot that you want. Now, how do we pick who gets in? First of all, most programs do have a baseline GPA cutoff. And it's not a 3.0 for the PhD at UCI. So in a couple different programs I've been with, we have a baseline GPA. We just don't look at students below a certain GPA because there are too many of them. Okay, here's something I probably shouldn't say, but I will. In the material science and engineering field, because it's a small field, there are not many undergrads that get degrees in it. We often have students come from other programs. We have to advertise to get students to know about coming to material science and engineering, the study of materials and how they behave. We actually look at any students here at UCI, in our graduate admissions committee. We look at anybody who has a 3.2 or higher. Doesn't mean they'll get in, but we at least read their application very seriously and consider them. The chemical engineering program at UCI, on the other hand, has a much bigger pool, has more students applying. Every pretty much engineering school has chemical engineering. So they have about a 3.4 GPA minimum cutoff. Biomedical engineering is a little bit higher in some cases. So it all depends on where you are. So we sort of have a minimum cutoff because otherwise we'd have way too many applications to look at. Although we look at everybody, I shouldn't say we don't look at them, but we really seriously would think about financial support and all for students who have whatever that particular program's minimum or above. We do look at the GRE scores, and we're particularly, as I said, interested in the math. And it's nice that you can write. So we do want that a reasonable score on that. But one of the key things is these letters of recommendations. People who have PhDs, people who've been your research supervisors. Oops, let's get off there. as I said, your research experience, that's going to be key. It's going to tell us two things. Number one, can you write? And can you write concisely? Please do not write the 5-page, I am wonderful. When I was a small child, I found a stone and I decided I was going to be a scientist or whatever. No, we don't really care about that. Make it not too terribly long, but convey information. And again, if you've done outreach programs, if you've been part of broader programs, you've been part of, let's say, McNair programs, or part of LS AMP programs, or CAMP programs, or there's a slew of other programs that you may have been in part of. Anything that you've done that shows you've got some interest in what we would sort of think about as teaching skills, that's sort of helpful to us. The broader thing that we would like to see at the university, broader impacts we call it. So, but number one, we're going to look at your research. If you have zero research, which none of you do because you're all here, which is great, but we get letters, people say, I want to do the PhD and I've never done research before. And we say, okay, master's, which is good, because if they do well in their master's, they can continue on to the PhD. But we say, master's, no financial support. If they say, I did research, we go, ooh, now we're serious about, do we want to give you financial support? Okay, trivial, everything in on time. The deadlines are deadlines. You've got to get none of your stuff in, you've got to get your professors in. Here's my secret. I tell my students. I said, if it's important, send me an email. Tell me the date it has to be in. When you need my letter of recommendation. And then I said, okay, now 2 weeks before, double check, send it again. Then again. 1 week before, send it again. And if I say, I'm going to do it, yeah, I'll do it later this week. Then start sending me 2 emails right in a row. Then 3 emails. Then 4 emails. And so my inbox is full of like 10 emails in a row from you saying, have you had a chance to do this yet? Do I need to give you anything? Always give your person who's writing a letter a little, like your resume or something about you, as well as your transcripts. Yep.
When I write a letter of recommendation, I find it very useful to have the student's statement of purpose in front.
Yes.
And that also turns out that it incentivizes the student to get that thing done early.
And even better, to ask for feedback. So
Well, they get it whether or not they
That's
ask
right.
for it once they provide it.
right, but that's I had forgotten about that too, because that is one of the most useful things. The faculty member can see what you really are interested in, so when they write their letter, they can say, oh, and by the way, Rochelle did research in fuel cells with me, but then she took this class on nanobiotechnology, and now she's really excited about biomems. Although she's not working directly in this field, I can see how this experience will help her in her future research. If I wrote a letter and said, oh, Rochelle wants to do research in fuel cells, da-da-da, she's great, da-da-da, and it completely mismatched what her statement of purpose was, people go, I guess they haven't been talking recently, have they? So, excellent, thank you for suggesting that. Sending your statement of purpose and to get edits back is very, very useful. On time. So on time, you got to get your transcripts. And some universities and community colleges are faster than others. So you want to start this early and make sure that those transcripts get there on time. Do we know you? Okay, that's useful. If you've been an undergrad here, if you did a summer experience from Mount SAC, let us know in your statement. I did research there as an undergrad. Now, a last thing that looks really good is, did you apply for any other fellowships? And there's a National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship that many of you would be eligible to apply for. It's a 3-year fellowship for graduate school, but it gives you $30,000 a year in a stipend, and it pays your fees. Yes? You apply for that in the fall, right before you go to grad school. So that would be the fall of your senior year, the year that you're going to graduate. But it's never too late to look at the website and get started on thinking of ideas and what you need for it, okay? But even if you don't get these fellowships, the fact that you applied and you tried is really good, because you're eligible as a first-year graduate student to apply again. And that means we can work with you on improving your application, and that it can be very prestigious for your future career. Now, I wanted to tie it in, what are you doing here this summer, right? And it's early, that's why I asked to be early, because I said I want to be early because I want to make sure that if you're thinking about maybe grad school or you're thinking about going on in research, what's relevant this summer? The letters, of course, are. And what the faculty this summer can tell is how well did you perform. And there's all different categories, and I'll invite any other comments. I mean, something as trivial is, did you show up on time? Or were you asked to come in at 9 o'clock and you sort of stroll in at 10 or 10:30 every day? If you're supposed to meet and work on a piece of equipment, were you actually there when you're supposed to be there? Did you stay for the full time? I've been told there's a few people who said they weren't going to be here today because they decided to go on vacation for the 4th of July early. Well, let me tell you, if I get their applications, they're out here because I'm not interested in somebody who's not committed, who has an opportunity to be in a program, to hear lectures from faculty who are taking their time, and they simply want to go on vacation early. Now, everything's flexible. You can ask if you need time off, if you want to adjust things. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying, are you responsible? So this first question is not really about time management so much as, are you responsible? We look for that in those letters of recommendation. Because if you're not responsible, we don't want you in grad school. You're going to be irresponsible as a grad student, and that's just a waste of our time. Are you really interested in learning? That's the second question up there. Did you read the things you were assigned? Did you ask questions? Were you inquisitive? Or did you just kind of do the minimum? Show up, do this, show up, do this. And that really to us, are you interested in learning? So are you responsible? Are you interested in learning? Are you just bored and you're sitting here because you want to go off and, I don't know what, get off to that hot 4th of July party? Okay, is there something you can learn? Then have you actually got concrete skills? Is this next one. You've learned how to operate equipment in some cases, how to take directions, how to do calculations, how to run computer programs. How successful were you? Can your professor say, managed to master C++, plus whatever it is today, for the summer, and was able to develop these new programs? It was great to have that skill set. That's really useful. Are you responsible? Do you want to learn? Is learning interest, advanced learning interesting? And do you have skills? This is, do you have your self-initiative, where you actually can interpret things and assess knowledge and push it to a higher level. So this is more than just taking directions and doing things and mastering certain skills. Can you come up with some ideas on your own where this project would go, what you might think you should do? Now, in the beginning, it's kind of a pretty high level to ask for this, and some who are staying here at UCI and you go on past the summer, you'll have more opportunity to develop these skills. But this is critical. When I see a letter from somebody who says, so-and-so came in my lab, and they were part of this small project, and they, managed to make a widget under my direction, and that was useful, I say, okay, could be good, could be an okay student. Then I see another letter that says, came into the lab, came up with a new idea how to make this widget that we had drafted the blueprints already, changed the blueprints, asked us, consulted my student and I, came up with a new plan, turned out was so much better than what we originally had come up with. Then I go, wow, that person's got initiative. That person really wants to think on their own. Teamwork. We don't actually specifically always ask this, but some of the questions on some of the graduate admissions, they'll have like a checklist of things you have to comment on. And this is becoming more and more important, is teamwork. How well do you work with other people? Are you the person who just sits in the corner? You don't interact much? You didn't talk to anybody except asking for advice from your graduate mentor? Were you part of a group? How did you interact? Were you kind of angry with people? Was it kind of a crummy, experience having you around? Or were you good working with others? Industry is telling us this is the #1 thing they want, by the way. Even if you just if you go on and get a great job after undergraduate school, they want people who can do teamwork. And in graduate school, it's really important because we don't work all by ourselves anymore. My graduate students interface with a slew of faculty and graduate students from so many different departments. It's really great, but you need to be able to do that. When you give presentations, you want to make sure, of course, you're going to get them past your advisor and your graduate mentor. But we want to know, are you able to improve? Maybe the first time you give an oral presentation is not very good, the next time it gets better, the next time it gets even better. We want to be able to say, in graduate school, we want to say, do you have good oral skills? Can you present well? And can you write about your research? Your statement of purpose will tell us that too. Have you been able to convey to us something about what you're doing in your research and what was important? So this is actually pretty critical for us also, because I don't have time to teach you how to write in graduate school. You need to know how to do that already. On time, we already talked about that. And when you're an undergrad here in the summer research program, if I asked you to turn in a draft of your talk on Wednesday, did you turn it in on Wednesday? Or did you wait until the day before and then say, oh, well, now I've got it ready? If you do that, I'm not impressed. I go, okay, you're doing everything on your timeline. You don't understand that everything has sort of like a master schedule, and we all need to be part of the same team. And lastly, something, we all talk about doing your own initiative, doing your own stuff. But my question is, what about, have you sought out people when you need them? This is, have you sought out your graduate mentor and your professor when you need them? Maybe they're not around. Maybe they're in Korea or Hong Kong for 2 or 3 weeks. They probably have email. You can probably email them and ask them questions. You can finally find people that will answer things that you need. But never go in like not knowing at all what you're supposed to be doing, or even more dangerously go in the lab and try to do something you don't know how to do. So have you actually appropriately found people and asked them questions? Okay? I never mind. I'm always really happy when people sort of go, haven't seen you around, but I'd really like to know, when are we going to meet? Okay, so those are all signs that you're ready to be a good graduate school student, which is both being independent and being interdependent. Okay? Now, the cool thing about going to grad school is graduate programs want you. Okay? They want you're going to have great research experience this summer. You're going to do more research after this. You're going to have good grades. You'll have good letters. They're going to want you. And so when you apply and you're admitted, usually the admissions committees make their decisions in February or early March, they will usually ask or be open to having you visit. Many programs will pay. If you're going to Boston University, they'll usually say, we'll pay for your airfare. We'll give you $400 to fly here. And we'll have you stay with a student and we'll let you see the campus. Bigger graduate programs, our department, for example, we combine it on a particular visitation day, a Friday and a Saturday. And we ask everybody, can you come on this Friday and Saturday? And then you get to come and see who all the other students are who've been admitted and whether you like them or you want to be co-fellow students with them. This is something that's becoming more and more routine. You are all probably permanent residents or U.S. citizens, and that already makes you a special class of students, okay? Some fields, like the life sciences, they will actually not give you an admission letter. They'll give you that you're technically, potentially able to be admitted. Mm-hmm. And they will use these visitation days as interviews to figure out who they finally want to accept. So in the life sciences, the biological sciences, it can be a little bit different. For engineering, physics, and chemistry, we pretty much accept students and then say, come visit. And if a program doesn't say come visit, you want to email them and say, well, can I come and visit? And is there any support if they're far away? If it's Riverside, you can probably fly there. The important thing here is, as I said, I would never go and pick a grad school if I hadn't already visited and talked to the faculty and found out what they're like. You also get to meet graduate students when you're there. And you can ask them the questions like, okay, what's it really like in the dorm, or not the dorms, the graduate apartments? How difficult was it to find housing? What does it really cost to live here? Do you need a car? How did you like Professor so-and-so? You can find out all kinds of things. And this is fun. It means that you got a crazy spring quarter or spring semester because you'll be graduating and finishing your senior projects and going all around trying to look at grad schools. But the best part is you get paid. Okay, here's $100,000 for being in a PhD program. Never actually go to a PhD program that doesn't pay you, okay? Because that means they don't really want you. The PhD programs that will accept you should give you financial support. At a minimum, it's usually around $20,000 a year, can be significantly more at some places. So $20,000 a year for 5 years, that's $100,000. They'll give you to live on. Oh, that's nice. They don't give it all up front, of course, month by month. They also should pay for your fees and your tuition. Okay? So that should all be part of what is offered to PhD students who are willing to commit to 5 years to getting a graduate degree. Some places guarantee housing. Now, if you go to Minneapolis, okay, to the University of Minnesota, it's pretty cheap. You can rent an apartment for $450. Okay, so and there's lots of housing around. It's not a big problem. Here at Irvine, we got in Orange County, right around this neighborhood. It's pretty expensive to live, so we guarantee that any first-year PhD students can get housing right on campus. So depending on where you're going, you might want to know. I'm going to Boston. Okay, what kind of housing is available? What is there? Now, I said we don't typically support master's students. Occasionally, there is some support. So if you had a particular reason you wanted to go for a master's program in a certain place, always ask. Never hurts to ask. And occasionally, there are certain fellowships or research associate positions that are for masters. Okay? I'm just saying that the probability is like 10%, where it's almost 100% for the PhD students. Usually it's a combination of all these different kinds of funding: fellowship funding, research assistantship, where you work on a research project and get paid. You'll be a TA. You might have internships in companies or national labs in the summer. And they usually will give you funding for all 4 or 5 years, for all the years. So you should expect that. Sometimes they write it in the letter. But usually if you're in good academic standing, that means you haven't failed your classes, you're doing well, making progress, they will continue to support you. At UCI, we use financial aid money for graduate students. We sort of mix it in with everything else. And so if you've ever applied for financial aid as an undergrad, that horrible FAFSA form, you have to fill it out again, but it's easier because it's only about you, it's not about your parents. So it's just a way that they can tap into some government funds in addition. Now, fellowships, we have some at the university, but I'm going to actually go on because I want to tell you, I'll come back to the outside fellowships in a minute. The research assistantships, they typically pay you for 20 hours a week, but they expect you to work full-time. And that's more because you're not only working for them, whoever project you're working on, but you're actually doing your dissertation research too. Now, this is important. You are to be doing research as a graduate student all the time. You don't have guaranteed vacation days. Depending on your group and your professors, sort of thing, they can negotiate. I give my students an additional 2 weeks a year they can take for vacation and say, just let me know when you're taking your 2 weeks or whenever you are taking off. If it's an official university holiday, and the university is closed, like the 4th of July, tomorrow, I don't expect any of my graduate students to be in. Okay, that's also official closed university, nobody's here holidays. The rest of the time, you're doing research. Okay? Just because the academic quarter's ended doesn't mean, or the semester's ended, doesn't mean you get to go off and just spend the summer, in the Bahamas. You're expected to continue with your progress for your research, especially if you're getting any kind of support. So that's really important that you key into this if you want to take time off or things like that you know how to ask for it. Okay, everybody knows what a TA does, right? Everybody has teaching assistants probably, can help people grade, people involve office hours. One of the things that you might not know is that when we interview people to be faculty members, they can tell us from being a teaching assistant how they interact with the class, what's their teaching style, and that can be a real advantage. So many of your PhD students will have some time to be a TA, and we also offer, most universities do some great TA training. That's really great if you ever do want to become a faculty member. Now, as I said, this will be on the website, and the first fellowship is the one that was asked about when we could apply, and this is the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship. Its deadline is early November. It's like right at the beginning of November. As I said, you can apply if you're going to go to graduate school the next year. It's a very nice one, and that's one, and there are actually several others too that you can apply on your own for. It requires letters of recommendation, so those same 3 people that would write you letters for grad school would write you letters of recommendation for this. It requires a research idea, and there's quite a bit more related to it. There are other graduate fellowships that are given to the universities that then they give out. And they target different groups of students. For example, there's an IGERT, which we actually have 2 IGERTs. We've had 2 IGERTs here at UCI that also give great stipends, $30,000 a year. There's graduate assistantships in area of national need. This is from the U.S. Department of Education. It targets first-generation, low-income students, students who have traditionally not gone on to graduate school, as well as the NSF Alliance for Graduate Education, the Professoriate, looks at underrepresented minority students, encouraging diversity in the graduate programs. And so sometimes these programs, depending on which campus you're at, can give you extra funding or extra opportunities. The only one that you have to directly apply to on your own is the first one. And as I said, the graduate fellowships, interestingly enough, you kind of have to figure out where you think you might want to go first. And when you apply to the NSF Graduate Fellowship, you list that school. But if you don't go to that school, that's fine. In fact, even if you don't get in, it doesn't matter. All they want to know is, do you have a place, at least one graduate school in mind? And can you have the letters, your transcripts? You don't need the GRE. Forget the GRE. You don't need that. Transcripts. And do you have a research topic and a research idea? This is probably the hardest thing to come up with. This is where you could work on something, talk to a couple faculty, polish it up a bit. But they're really interested if you thought about what kind of research you want to do. Does it make sense? Even if you never do that research project, all they want to know is, could you come up with an idea that we think would be reasonable? And as I said, the deadline is usually near the beginning of November. Another thing at different schools, this is, again, not where you don't apply directly, but some schools have these graduate teaching fellowships too. So I will skip that right now. This is the IGERT program. And if you really like interdisciplinary research, and a lot of you are going to be exposed to it this summer, the IGERTs are nationwide. You can actually say, if I'm interested in interdisciplinary research and new kinds of ways of doing graduate education, you could go to the National Science Foundation website, look up IGERT, and look up who has IGERT sites. And you could apply to those graduate programs and say, I'm interested in this. The idea that National Science Foundation has, let's make something that we can really integrate, and we can have really new models of graduate education. So these are all over. The one, Professor G.P. Lee was a leader of one. They've just written a renewal. Mark Bachman and Professor Vasan Venugopalan has just received one of these here at UCI. Very, very highly competitive, but they're very interesting because they work on projects that require you to be part of an interdisciplinary team. The GAN fellowships are also need-based. So sometimes you'll find this need-based thing. This is why you want to have that FAFSA filled out, because some of them are based on how much money you have. So if you have a trust fund or a rich wife or a rich husband, you may not qualify. But you can also find this at the different universities if you think you're eligible. And we talked about the NSF AGEP program. Now, 2 last things I want to say, and then I want to open up for questions. How long are we supposed to go? Here.
1:15.
1:15, okay. Okay, when you see your professor, tell them this is supposed to go till 1:15, and that next time you'll have to stay till 1:15, okay? Let them know ahead of time, okay. got two things, and I do want to ask a few questions, so let me open this up. What is a real life like? We talked about you take classes, you do these exams, you start research with your advisor, you know, you of course publish papers, that's a big thing in academia, you give talks at conferences, you do collaborative research, all right, blah, blah, blah. What's it really like? This is the part that most students don't know. It is so much fun. My students, Lena Ramirez spent 2 summers at IBM, and she did 3 research trips to New Zealand, where she was down there doing part of her collaborative research. Phil and Mamora and Mei Ing, both PhD students, different times, went to Japan for a whole summer on this incredibly cool NSF program. They got to learn the culture of Japan, how to do research. They published a paper from some of their work that they did there. Kevin Olson did work at the National Institute of Science and Technology in Washington, D.C., also had an internship up at Corona. Adel Sharif, who's now at CSU LA, he went up and did part of his research at Los Alamos. Got to see New Mexico, got to travel around. So it's not all just being in a lab and being at your university and doing that. There's incredible opportunities out there, which is one of the things I like about academics the most. Okay. Sorry, I had so much I wanted to tell you, but let's open up for a few questions. Questions, thoughts?